In today's interview, I'm excited to introduce a new company to the channel, and we have the CEO here with us, Dr. Praveen Jain of Sparq Systems. Hi, Doctor. How are you?
Very good. Thank you very much. Good morning.
And just before we get started, this is going to be probably there's going to be a few topics we cover, so wide ranging. If you're watching, there's timestamps below. And honestly, Doctor, I really enjoy getting to know you over my last two trips. But I think because we're going to cover complicated topics, I thought we could go back in time and actually understand how your background might fit really well into Sparq Systems. So I have some notes here, but I'm curious if you could just tell me why do you think your background is very, very well suited for Sparq?
Spark manufactures something called microinverters, and microinverters are the electronics devices which you connect the renewable energy source like PV to the grid or convert into usable form of electricity, right? And throughout my life, I have been in this field called power electronics, which is the processing of electrical energy through electronics.
Hmm.
I entered into this field way back in 1981. And so in power electronics, what happen is that we would like to process the electrical energy in the most efficient manner
Hmm.
at low cost and very small size, right? So those are some of the, let's say, fundamental requirement, the size, weight, and the cost, right? They have to be as small as possible, right? And there is one particular factor called frequency, and this factor frequency decide like what will happen to the size, what will happen to the cost and performance, right? And higher this frequency is, and better it is for this conversion, right? And I'm fortunate to be one of the very early researcher
Hmm.
to enter into this field where we are able to increase this frequency quite a bit
Hmm.
without having the side effect, which is particularly creating more losses. So we do not create losses, and we can go at very high switching frequency. So that's how I started, and I had been at the forefront of this fundamental technology, and for the last 40 plus years. And so now I see this opportunity at Spark, and then how various things can be applied in developing most innovative product in the market.
So, Dr. Jain, I think you might be a little bit modest. I'm gonna read some of your accomplishments here because I read an article that called you a Canadian treasure and a brilliant inventor. So, again, on behalf of Canada, thank you for your work because you can correct me if I'm wrong here. So, again, I think we're gonna try to make a complicated topic very simple, but I think it's important for us to understand why we want to listen to Dr. Jain. I did some research. I saw that in terms of scholar publications, you've had hundreds of them. I think there was over 700. And then I went and looked for the citations. I noticed over 16,000. I've also noticed you've been awarded multiple awards, including one in 2023 for the Killam Award in Engineering. So I think that someone like you who might have decades of experience in the sector, this kind of seems like second nature to you. But for me, I'm just really impressed that a company, again, a public company in Canada, has a CEO who's this decorated for his past. I think you might be the most distinguished guest I've had. So I just wanted to just say that so that people can understand that this might seem like a very complicated topic, but I think that Dr. Jain's decades, again, 40 plus years of experience, is really all coming together to make Sparq something really special. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Dr. Jain?
I think you're quite right too. And once again, I think I have been very fortunate to be one of the for very few people early enough to work on this topic, which is called modern power electronics, like how do we do power conversion
Mm.
at high frequencies. And I had been fortunate enough to work with many large organizations in Canada, multiple applications from space to telecom to computers, and now in renewable energy, right? And I think is that I'm very happy that I had been recognized by Killam Trust. I received this Killam Prize in engineering in 2023, which is the highest prize in Canada for any engineer, right? So I think I've been very fortunate and lucky, and Canada is a beautiful country. You can do anything you want, right? You have to just imagine, and you can convert that into reality. And I'm really thankful to this country and this society to give me this opportunity.
And thank you for that too, because as Canada, we have something that we call the Canadarm, which we're very proud of. It's one of our contributions we've made to international space. And when I met you the first time, I heard you mention that one of your first jobs in Canada was working in the with astronauts and with the aerospace, but specifically on the Canadarm or the Canadian arm. What was that like, and how did you fix it? Because from what I understood, it stopped working. It was not moving. And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So I think is that to me that was a major breakthrough for me to professionally enter into the Canadian industry. After finishing PhD from the University of Toronto, I was hired by a company called Canadian Astronautics in Ottawa,
Hmm.
and there was a challenge like how can we design the high frequency power conversion equipment for the Canadian arm, right? And
Mhm.
fresh from school, like it was the great opportunity for me to work in these new applications and contribute, right? So I think
Mhm.
I will say that uh, most of my career was built on my work with Canadian astronautics for on Canadian arm, right? So
Mhm.
that work I have been able to take from there and then apply into the telecom applications in northern telecom. So I'm once again I've been very lucky and fortunate to find this job and then work with some of the best minds in the country.
So, Dr. Jain, we're going to get into some of the specifics of Spark systems, the reason why it's very innovative. And normally, when people say that there is a cost and a efficiency benefit, that's a red flag because normally those two things don't happen together. And that's why I'm trying to tease some of these things out as I get to know you because I plan to tell your story and cover it for the next couple of years. So, if the audience is wondering if there's any questions or concerns, again, please reach out. We'd be more than happy to help and collect those for a future interview. But what I'm thinking of here as you're speaking is you've had previous success early. You've been able to snowball those into again maybe more experience, more expertise. But what I'm wondering is why do you want to do this? Like it seems like you have a passion. When I met your team, when I saw them introduce the products they're working on, you seem to have a little bit of pride for being Canadian. So, like, what does Spark Systems mean for you? Like, why do you wake up in the morning, and why are you excited about this company?
It's basically is that I think anything we do in the life there has to be purpose, right? And I think being a scientist and an engineer, right, is spending active years of life, right? So I think is that we need to convert some of that knowledge into practice, right? And Canada is a country full of innovators and inventors, right? And one of the things, we are a very large country, but very small in terms of population, being a small country. And I think we need to develop the industry here in Canada, which are the leading industry in technology. And we need to create jobs for Canadians. And I think that is one of my major thing. Like, how can we convert our knowledge into know-how and develop innovative product, and that too in Canada, right? So I think this is a rare opportunity which I have seen, is because that now all this energy transition, right, require that kind of technology. Like so, we have all the sources of energy, right? But those sources of energy we cannot use them, right? We have
Mhm.
to tap them in and then convert those energy into more usable energy, and that all happen through electronics, right? And Canada has been one of the pillar in the field of power electronics, and we had been contributor to this field since early 1960s, right?
Mm.
So I think that we have the we have the very wide base here, and I think this was an opportunity for me that how can we utilize all those resources and the knowledge, and then try to set up a Canadian company for the not only for the benefit of the global benefit of the people, but also creating the jobs for the Canadians.
Did you envision you would start a solar company when you started your career?
No, no,
Okay, so
no,
so
no.
now we're going to jump into the solar stuff more, and this is where again, investors oftentimes I look for three things in any successful company, Praveen. I look for people, process, and product. So the reason why I focus on those three things is because we need the right people to make sure the company runs forward. We need the right process to make sure that the widgets get out the door, which we're going to talk about now, and then the right products. So where I wanted to start was really focusing on the product itself. So I'm going to pretend like I'm a 5-year-old because sometimes people don't want to ask questions if it doesn't make sense. So and please correct me if I'm wrong. The way that I understand the inverter, which we're going to talk about, there's an inverter, there's a quad inverter, but the reason why the inverter is important is because there's three components. There's the solar panel, which harvests the sun, and then it needs to get changed into a different frequency, and then it needs to either be used, which can mean it could go to the grid, go to your house, or go to energy storage. So we'll talk more about on-grid, off-grid, the mechanics there, but at a high level, is that correct? Like there's the three components, and the inverter is important because it needs to convert the input into a correct output to be used. Is that right?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
absolutely correct.
Okay.
And now you can earn an electrical engineering degree.
I would love to be a student of yours because in the lab, everyone seemed they had huge smiles on, and it seemed like they were a very proud team. So, okay, so now we understand that, and then there's a string inverter, there's old inverters, there's micro inverters, now there's quad inverters. I need you to please help me simplify this. So, there's old technology, which is where it works, but it might not be efficient all the time. Where if one panel degrades, the whole system degrades. So that's where the innovation of the microinverter means one inverter per panel. It's able to increase the efficiency and decrease the downtime. So am I correct so far?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. And then to go from this is the part that I need your help with. To go from the quad inverter to the, micro inverter to a quad micro inverter. That's
Right.
where it sounds good. It sounds like there is a benefit of cost and of actually efficiency. That's the part I'm struggling with a bit.
Right. So what happened is that we take there are, let's say, there are three types of inverters. The central inverter, which is for very large solar farms.
Mhm.
Then there are string inverters, which are for most of them for the rooftops, so some small to medium installations, and then the microinverter. So what happened is that uh, in the older type of system based on central inverters and the string inverters, so their all panels are connected in series and parallel combinations.
Mm.
So if one of the panel is weak, so that weak panel decide how much energy the total system is going to produce, right?
Mm.
So with the help of microinverters, uh, it's that we extract the maximum energy on per panel basis, right? So that out of, let's say, 100 panels, if only one panel is weak, so it doesn't matter, the 99 panels will produce the maximum energy, whatever we
Mm.
can extract from them, right? So that is the basic advantage of micro inverter based systems. But now what happens is that if we have one micro inverter for every panel, then our cost is high, right? And so what we found out is that working with the in the field, that in most of the applications, four panels meet at one common point, at one corner, right? So rather than we use the four single microinverters, we can combine them and make one quad microinverters in which we can still achieve the independent energy extraction from each panel. But now we can combine a lot more electronics in one inverter, and that helps us in bringing down the cost substantially. So what quad inverter does is that it offers the high performance solution at much lower cost. So that is that's the benefit.
So it throttles. So whichever is the lowest producing panel, it goes to that unless it's able to have the inverter on its own. So that's where, like you mentioned, if there's 100 panels and they're all producing at 99 efficiency, but one's producing at 60, it would go down to the 60. So that's the
Right.
increase to the microinverter. And now the quad means that it only requires one piece of hardware for those 4 PV panels or for the 4 solar panels.
Right.
That's pretty incredible.
Right.
That's 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 very innovative. I understand why a lot of people want to cite you and why you've had so many publications. So part of what I had to understand, and the audience is familiar with solar, but the 3 parts of a vertical for solar is the panel, and there's efficiencies in panels. We're aware of that. There's perovskite. There's different things you can spray on top, right? Photovoltaics. There's improvements in those. Energy storage. They're improving the energy storage. But the third part, honestly, I didn't really know a lot about inverters. That's where I'm learning. I'm getting educated, and I'm understanding that as a system, holistically, these 3 components, when they work well together, it's a solution that is very easy to implement in the regions like India because there's so much sun. There's cheap labor. There's the accessibility, and similar to new technology, they can implement something without the infrastructure from the past. So they can start with a clean slate, the best technology, and that's where now the audience might be wondering. So you've told me it's better, but now you're also going to say it's cheaper. So the part that I wanted to focus on to tease out, which we'll come back to in a moment, is, again, I might be wrong, but I understood that the other innovative part of Sparq systems is that there's the hardware or the quad inverter, but there's also the software. You've got firmware, you've got software, you've got the way you're intelligently looking through all of it. So could you please just briefly touch on so now we understand what a quad inverter is. How does that pair together with the software to give Sparq an unfair advantage?
Yeah. So that is a very good question, Justin. And is that like the Spark's approach is fundamentally different than many of our competitors, right? So what we have done is that we have a common platform of hardware. So we have a high frequency architecture for the inverter, which is the hardware piece, right? And that is complemented by the very sophisticated mathematical algorithm, right? So by manipulating those mathematical algorithms, the same hardware now can be used for multiple purposes. So like we have the same inverter, which could be grid connected, off grid, or can work on and off grid operation. Also, it can be integrated with the battery system seamlessly, right? So what happened is that the real advantage which we have over the competition is that we have a common hardware, and by using the different mathematical algorithm, we can have the same hardware, convert it into many different applications. So that basically helps us the bringing down the cost at a system level, right? So like in an application, you might require 2 separate inverters, right? But in this case, the same inverter can perform the function of 2 separate inverters, right? So that can bring down the system cost considerably, right?
Mm.
So I think this is the second part, which is the mathematical driven control algorithm, right? So that is the real edge which we have over our competitors, right? So
Mhm.
one product for multiple applications, right? And that is enabling us very nicely in India, because in
Mm.
India, so there are different kind of let's say applications, different grades, right? Some there are already pre-existing base of the storage, inverters, battery inverters, and so on. So
Mhm.
our product seamlessly fits into those applications. We don't have to go and
Mm.
replace the existing hardware at all, right? So that it is basically allowing the retrofit of some of those systems very easily.
That's a really good answer, and I'm trying to keep this as an introductory interview because honestly, I was a little bit annoying at our last meeting in the lab because I kept asking questions because I have a curious mind and I have an insatiable appetite when it comes to investing because I mentioned this off camera before we recorded, but I like solving puzzles. I like making money, but more importantly, I like seeing a change impacted in the world, and that's what I really want to help you with is. This is a complicated topic. These are things that are way over my pay grades, but I want to help educate people so they can understand that there are things that Canada can be proud of today, tomorrow, and that the innovators of tomorrow, that's the pride factor I got too with your team, was that they seem really happy to be working on something that they can see the impact in the world, in India specifically. So, what I wanted to do quickly now was just to quickly touch on the specifications of your hardware versus others because when I think of something everyone knows is a phone, there's an Android. So there's the hardware, which has the hardware component, and then software could be a mix and match. Or an iPhone, it's vertically integrated. They have the hardware and the software. So Ken, when you mentioned that this can be used for more than one place, what kind of other just quickly like power inversions work? Like I know there's the power from my wall to the power in my computer or my laptop. There's the one for the Canadian arm. Like where else does this inversion stuff matter? Because it's not just for solar, right?
Yes, that is correct. So what happened is that, as I mentioned briefly, that so there we are all going towards renewable energy, right? Which is coming from different sources, right? So now what happened is that each energy source now needs to be converted to the grid or to the loads at home or data centers, so your supercomputers, so, AI, right? All those applications, right? So now is that we are seeing the increased use of energy everywhere, right? As our standard of living rises, then we need more and more energy, right? So we need to convert then of a lot of renewable energy into the electricity, right?
Mhm.
So 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 what happened is that so this is the inversion technology, which is now is used for the, let's say, PV applications. So we can use the same technology for EV, electrical vehicles.
Mm,
We can use the similar technology for wind applications.
mm,
And so any renewable source we have, we can use this kind of technology, right? We can use this for energy storage. We can use it for smart grids. We
mm.
can use it to for the electrical vehicle, any applications, right? So it's like we do not have to go and reinvent every
Okay.
time. So we have the base ingredients of the technology, and through our mathematics, so we can convert that into different applications.
So I'm going to repeat back what I heard, and then just please correct me if I'm wrong, because I want the audience to make sure this is really clear. So we talked about vertical integration for solar, where there's the solar panel, there's the inverter, and then there's energy storage. But that energy storage now has to get pushed back for use. So that could be stored in a battery where now it goes to the home, has to be changed again. So there is inversion more than once. But then there's
Right.
also the different ways we can use it. There could be origination with solar, there could be origination with wind, There could be origination with something else, but it still has to be converted for storage, conversion to go to the grid, or conversion for immediate use. So this inverter is what I'm trying to say is for someone who is new to understanding how important inverters are, they're very important in everything for the electrical revolution we're going through right now. Is that correct?
That is perfectly
Okay.
correct. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
perfect.
yeah, yeah.
So if now we think about that, and if we, so the benefit that I see with Spark is that we're not the ones to create the first inverter or the first ones to create the first microinverter. So other companies did the research, they went and found customers, they sold lots of product. So now we have a better version of it. We have a better system, and we have the hardware and the software. So how do we compare to say like an Enphase, which everyone will understand in terms of the like the cost, but then also the efficiency.
So what happened is that I think the main thing would be the let's just is the cost. So if you really look at in most of the let's say system, like in the applications, so what matters is the what is the cost of the system, right? So lower the cost we have, more penetration we have with the renewable energy, right? So first let us address the cost issue. So in the cost to is that I mentioned that here we are able to combine four single inverters into one.
Mm-hmm.
So that is reducing the cost of bill of material significantly. That is also reducing the cost of balance of the system, cables, connectors significantly. That is also reducing the labor cost because now rather than you install four inverters, you're installing only one inverter, right? So that also cost comes down, right? Then on top of that is the the um, the use of the same product in multiple applications. Like if
Mm.
you let's say for example is you want to water the you want to have the solar water pumps, for example, right? So you can use the same product to run the water pumps and at the same time to feed energy back to the grid, right? So
Mm.
there are multiple application, multiple use you can have. So that also bring down the overall system cost, right? But on let us say inverter to inverter based comparison is that we have far less components. The cost of bill of material is far lower than if we use the single inverters, which is used, let's say, by Enphase, right? So I think is that it is unfair for me to say that what is the cost of different manufacturers, right? But I can tell you is that our cost of product is very low. We are at par with the string inverters cost
Okay,
at this
so
stage.
oh sorry. So what I understood was low SKUs. So the number of total products you have is low because you can use the same hardware for more than one application with a software tweak,
Right,
similar to like an iPhone where they're selling an AI phone today, but there's no AI components. They push a software update for that. So we can take that same inverter, we can plug it into a farmer who needs to water his crop, where we take that same inverter with a software update and we can put it into say a geo tower, and now we're able to convert the power differently for those different applications. That's
right.
pretty incredible. And I know that if I have one instead of four, I know that's going to be cheaper. How much cheaper? It probably depends on scale, and that's where the second part now I understand is there's the benefit of the location you're in. So as far as I know, India is pretty hot, and the labor there is pretty low, and they have a need for power. So if we think about why maybe Sparq might be better positioned to do these testing phases over in India, maybe you could explain that. Why is India the best place for Sparq to start, and why did you choose that market?
Yeah, so I think there are several, let's say, several things for that one. First of all, is that Spark is a small company, right? And we have to get into India, which is a very large, big country, right? So it is necessary first to understand the market, and then maybe we should have some kind of partnership with some existing player in India, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is that, as you mentioned, India is hungry for energy right now. India does not have their own oil or natural gases. They have to import most of it, right? So India is hungry for energy and they want to produce their own energy. And one of the best source is solar, right? So what happening is that in India there is a lot of government initiatives in which they would like to replace the 29 million of water pumps with the solar water pumps, right? They would like to solarize 10 million rooftops and generate electricity from solar, right? So there are mega opportunities in India, right? And what happened is that at the same time, India is a very cost sensitive market, right? So, so, uh, so what we need, like the country needs a technology which is high performing and low cost and
Mm.
with flexibility, right? So I think is that somehow we fit in very well with the applications in India, and we see a definite advantage and benefit over our competitors in India. That's why we are starting from there.
Okay, so there's it sounds like a win-win-win. There's a win because the country needs this. The government needs it too. There's new technology. We can try it somewhere where there's a lot of sun for us to get the best effect. So when I was in person too, there's I don't know how much you want to share. It's up to you. But the interesting story of how you ultimately were selected to be the exclusive provider in India, where the reason why I'm talking about Enphase is, again, I understand you want to talk about your company's merit on its own because it does deserve that. But at the end of the day, you were selected, or Sparq was selected, to be the provider for India for a reason, which means you were able to compete on your own merit for wear and tear, for efficiency, also for price. So maybe, if you don't mind, you could just briefly touch on like the holistic view for like Sparq Systems as a total. Like why was it able to compete and win against all of the existing players when this is a fairly new company?
Right. So what happened is that I think I will look at three factors. The first factor is the life of the product, right? So you want a product that lasts long, right?
Mhm.
So in Spark's microinverters, we do not have any low life component, right? So there are two fundamental components in electronics, right? One is fan, and other thing is called the electrolytic capacitor for temporary energy storage, right? So I think these days no one uses fans because, but most of the competitors they use the electrolytic capacitors, right? And so electrolytic capacitors are the one of the weakest link in terms of the designing these inverters for long life, right? So our technology provide the long life, right? The second factor is that we have the very low bill of material, right? So any product when it is produced in volume, right? So the cost per watt will be very low. And then third thing is the flexibility, right? The use of flexibility.
Mm.
So we have the flexibility, the same product can be used in multitude of applications, right? So that is very powerful. So now we have a product which is highly reliable, which is very cost effective, and which is very flexible, right? So we had all these fundamental attributes to the product, and I think based off these basic attributes, Spark is selected by one of the largest player in India, Reliance, and the Geo Reliance, who is playing in a big way in this space in India, right?
And so thank you very much for that because when I heard you say it and we were at the like you had the inverter, I took some photos too, and I had a very nice candid photo of you where you're looking down at the inverter, you're smiling, and then I got some pictures that show that it's taken apart too. So what I heard from there was that, I'm going to go back to, I heard Mukesh Ambani in an interview mention that he loves first principles. So that's kind of what I'm hearing you say here is that if we're going to do something, let's do it right the first time. Let's think it through. Let's implement it correctly. And you won based on merit, which means that the company is probably going to go places. The terms of that contract might not be fully available today, but I know that the terms are really good, and I know the company will update us on that a little bit more after. But the other thing I wanted to touch on was so we talked about the product, the process a little bit, but what I wanted to do is touch on the people in a moment. But first, part of what I saw in the lab was that there was the simulation of there being night. So there's the power to on grid, there's the power to off grid, and then there was the like to the water pump. So could you please just briefly explain like those different product offerings right now? There's the cell tower, there's a water pump, there's residential solar. So what could Sparq be used for?
Yeah. So what happened is that we are coming up only three different fundamental products, right? One is the quad product, which will be, let's say, you can connect it to various applications or any application, single phase application, right? So one product for any single phase application. Then we have the similar version for the three phase product. So the difference in single phase and three phase is that single phase is mainly used for the smaller system, residential systems, and three phases are used more commercial and large solar systems, right? So we have these two products, and the third product which we have is the for the energy, let's say, system. So in which we can connect a solar panel as well as battery to the same inverter. So these three are our basic fundamental product, and this three product will cover now almost all possible applications of solar.
So
So
now, and so with all of that in mind, you're probably planning to be in more than just India, and you're probably planning to be profitable at some time. So I'm just wondering if you could briefly touch on like what the company's goals are now, because it seems like there's a ramp up period where you've done some testing, you have some products. So like, what's the plan for the rest of the world, and like when do you guys think you'd be at profitability?
So what is happening is that we are going to ramp up our volume in India first, and it helps in two ways. First is that it will meet the local market requirement, and then secondly, it will give us a volume of scale. So
Mm.
where we can go outside India and compete with other players, right? So we are planning to get into other sophisticated market like Europe and North America, Australia, and other parts of the world in Africa and so on, right?
Mm.
So we're starting from India, but eventually we are going to get to Europe and North America and Australia in far more sophisticated markets.
Okay. So what I heard was that there's so much demand in India, we're going to take care of India, and then when we're able to go to other markets, there's plenty for us to look at. And I'm assuming that profitability will come sometime soon. Again, exactly when the company will update us, because there's a lot of demand. So there's a customer who wants to buy this, and all around the world, we don't just need this for solar, we need it for a lot of things.
Right.
So I just got two more quick questions for you. And again, thank you very much for your time. So now we touched on the process, the people, sorry, the product. I want to touch on the people a little bit because what I learned by interviewing hundreds of CEOs, looking at companies, I realized that it really comes down to the people because you need to be able to have trust in them to be able to execute as the CEO. So who else is on the team and like, why are you so proud of them?
Well, I think is that we have a very sophisticated team of engineers, right? And So what happened is that, as you know, I'm also a professor at Queen's University, and I've been fortunate enough to work with a large number of students, right? And then from there, like we pick up the best, right? We channel through them through the process, through the system, through different degrees, and then hire them in Spark, right? So they are not just the employees of Spark, right? They are also have the similar thing as I do, that they would like to contribute to the society from their own learning. That's why you see that we have such a good team of people, right?
And two of the people I had the pleasure to meet were I got to meet Ravi Sood, who I'm probably gonna have an interview with him, and he's someone who I looked into his background and wow, when we got Dr. Jain, Praveen, and we have Ravi, that's incredible. But then there's also Majid. I think the PhD. He was smiling the whole time we were there. I think he just wants people to see his product, to be excited about it. And if I have a chance to, I would love to interview him. So my last question here for you, Praveen, is just we talked a little bit about the Canadian government. I guess what I'm wondering is, so we talked about India, we've talked about Africa, we've talked about other sophisticated markets. If this is a Canadian company, do you think eventually there might be some Canadian products that we could use here? Like, what are discussions like with the current government?
Yeah, definitely. So what happened is that like when we started, basically, we did enter into Canadian market, right? So we have number of solar installations in Canada, right?
Okay.
We're using Sparq inverters, right? So I think so far the Canadian government, we had number of discussions with various agencies, various people. They had been very helpful to Sparq, right? So I think is that there are various programs here, and this was the like Spark went into India with the help of our trade commissioner, Canadian
Oh,
trade commissioner in India, right? And then the high commissioner or high commission of Canada in India also help us in number of exhibitions and show where Canada participate. We had been part of their delegation. So the government is really helping us in getting into the different markets, and we did get a lot of research funding from various government organizations in Canada, right? So
good.
government has been very helpful, and for sure we will be in Canada.
So what I'm hearing is your Spark is already in Canada. I just didn't know that. But there is low-hanging fruit that the company is able to go get more easily, and then when appropriate, we'll come back and talk about our home country. So Dr. Jain and Praveen, thank you very much for your time again today. And I have a lot more questions going through as we're talking, but I want to respect your time. So I just had the last one here where if you have any final thoughts for the audience, if we could leave those. And then again, yeah, your final thoughts here, please.
Thank you very much. I think is that Canada has been at the forefront of energy. It's not now for last 100 plus years, right? So we are at the forefront of energy, whether it's nuclear energy, electrical energy, now renewable energy, and so I think we will continue on that path, and then we will lead the world based on our innovative technology and product. And I think I'm very proud of being Canadian, and then try to help not only Canada but the whole globe.
And my
Thank you.
final thoughts are just this again. So, people, process, product. I really enjoy getting to know you personally, getting to know your team, getting to see the actual environment you work in. But the last time I put boots on the ground, which means actually flying out to do research on a company, was probably like 5 years ago. Only really done it for a handful of companies, which means I really wanted to find out more about the company. and I was happily surprised at every time I got to learn more. So there's not that many Canadian success stories, Praveen. There's not that many companies that survive to the global stage that you aspire to go to. So I'll be very excited for our next interview, and I want to follow your journey along the way. And then just for the audience, please make sure you read the description for full disclosure details. And with that said, thank you very much for your time today again, Dr. Jain. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.